Hey, we're back with Great Battles of the American Civil War, Death Valley, Battle of First Kernstown. Scenarios that we are in for it. It's the full scenario of Kernstown here. So we're up to the 1 o'clock turn, and as you can see, Jackson has made his appearance, and we can see him right down in there. And he is deployed and getting up the artillery there behind him, as you can see, just to the southeast of the of his line. And the situation is this: the Union has held off their activations as long as they can because they want to get victory points, and they have accumulated 2 of them. So that's been good, but it has kind of left them a little bit in a pinch because Jackson has come up. He's moved up his artillery. He's moved up the cavalry over here as well, but the Union has stayed pretty much where they are. There was some cavalry movement over here on the Union right to try to form a roadblock for them over here. But as you can see, as Jack's moved up, the one cavalry, the 1st Maryland here, has retreated back to the flank of the 8th Ohio right here to protect the flank. Now, Jackson obviously is set up for an attack, and we'll get that going here probably in the next turn, probably with Garnett and Burks here trying to drive down and get these 2 isolated units over here. Now, from the Union perspective, they're going to have to start doing something, and they can without losing victory points over here. So this turn they can take 1 infantry activation, and get things moving. So they were going to need to get, first off, some command up here. I think Sullivan's going to come up. Maybe Kimball will come up here as well. We'll have to see how that goes. And then get the going up. So we'll have to see how that plays out here and see what happens. With the Union has, a good second line back here, and let's tip you up here so you can see that. So you can see the Union is well set back here for defensive positions. Up here in front, it's a little bit tougher, but they're forced not to move. And they don't have any command up here as well, which is going to be an issue, for them. So we'll see how this is going to play out, with this. Like I said, we're at the beginning of the 1 p.m. turn. So what I think I'm going to do with this next rest of this video is actually play out the 1 p.m. turn and bring you on and show you highlights of this as it develops and as it goes through here. So I'm going to get started with this, do some of the administration side, and then I'll move into the activation segments and show you what happens there. Okay, coming back with you here at the 1 p.m. turn. We've got 3 activations done so far. Confederate artillery, shields, and a Jackson activation have occurred. And I wanted to stop here because I wanted to show a little bit of the maneuvering of what's going on with the units across this 1 p.m. turn. So let's zoom you back out here and then tip you back down so you can see what's happened here. So first off, the artillery came out, which you saw there, Confederate artillery that is, and what happened here is they've actually came up and deployed. They tried a few shots here over at the Union artillery right here with no real effect. And then the Rockbridge artillery over here came and faced this way to potentially go after the 8th Ohio sitting over on the Union left-hand side. So that was the first activation. Then second came Shields, and Shields at this point now has 1 activation you can move without giving away a victory point. So they decided to use that for this particular turn and get some units moving, particularly over here with the units that were at the Mulaney house right here. That was the 8th Ohio. They were sitting there. If they had stayed there, they would have been attacked by Garnett um, in this particular turn, and would have started some action there. But instead, what they've done is they've actually pulled back about 150, about 300 yards back to this hex over here, as well as the 14th Indiana has come up, and they've both deployed, or well, the Indiana is deployed into extended line. They've both deployed into a line facing off Garnett. The skirmishers from the 8th Ohio actually redeployed into the Mulhaney Yard to potentially slow down Garnett's advance over here. So then also two other units moved up. Sullivan activated, came up to position these troops into reserve, kind of out of reserve, I should say, but into a second line closer to the action to link up with the 5th Ohio. Also, this will eventually put the 5th Ohio into command, as well as getting him into command here as well. So that will get them all into command at least in a better position over there. Kimball, realizing that there's going to be some action down here on the Valley Pike, decides to move his command forward, and he brings up his command staff as well as the 62nd Ohio that's back here. And they position here just so that they can start to reach out with their command and get other units in command in case there is a fight and they need to do some maneuvering or activating and kind of go from there. They don't want to try to save on victory points, but in case they have to. So that was all from the Union side of things here. Confederates then had Jackson activate. So he saw what the Union did over here and now has a couple of options here. They were aligned, if you remember back here, along the edge of the woods to their left flank, and then the Valley Pike on the right side of their flank, and the artillery down here as well. So at this point, they had few options. They still wanted to press the Union and keep them pinned over here as much as possible because they do want to try to flank them and try to get around there. All cognizant that the fact that back up on the hill, back up here, just out of frame, is the Union artillery down in here. But the point being is to maneuver the Union units, not necessarily engage them at this particular junction. So Garnett forms up and continues to advance forward to look like they're going to attack. They still have an option of not because they're still in the advance mode or advance orders. So they still will have the option of maneuvering if need be, or they can go into attack if they can get a good option that doesn't expose them too much. Then we have Fulkerson and Burks back here. Now, Fulkerson was in reserve, not reserve, but he was second line back here. Banks was extending the line back over here as well. They've kind of slipped a little bit to the left behind Garnett. This will give them more options here as well, because potentially we've got a little bit of a corridor right here that they can use to expose. Now, of course, the 1st West Virginia Cavalry is over here, blocking this trail and providing kind of a tripwire for any Confederate advance over to the flank. And then, of course, we've got the artillery up here, as I said, just off the frame, that will be able to command this area for any type of attack over there. But it does give them the option to get around there, or at least get into the woods, which will provide some cover from the artillery over here and provide some sort of flank attack. Because secondary to Jackson's attack is going to be physically attacking itself. Now, if they do physically attack and they can render one of the brigades ineffective, that gets 5 points, and that's going to be very, very strong in terms of getting them a victory. But the bigger thing is trying to get Kimball Shields division to commit more activations than what they're allowed so that they can get victory points over there. Eventually there will be some fighting as time goes on. Jackson will have to do some attacking, but hopefully we can whittle them down and get artillery, particularly Confederate artillery, into position to fire or provide support fire on those units so that hopefully that Garnett's and Burks's 2 brigades can drive in and give some damage to the Union troops. Union, on the other hand, again, is just playing the game of doing as little as possible for as long as possible. This will allow them to gain victory points and win the game. So that's going to be the thing. It's going to be kind of a reactionary thing to the Union. They do have the strength points, so it's going to be tough for the Confederates to attack. You notice there's some strong strength points of 7, 9, 11, 10, 10, so forth around here. So they've got some very strong troops versus the Confederates, which have, I think, 1, 9 there, and there's an 8 someplace there it is, and then the rest are 4s and 5s and 6s. So there's a little bit of a strength advantage on there. Quality is going to go to the Confederates in terms of the cohesions, 8s, 7s, and 8s over here versus 6s and 7s on the Union side over here as well. So those are the first couple activations here for the 1300 turn, 1 p.m. turn. So we'll move forward and do a few more and give you a highlight at that point. So we're a couple of activations later. Basically what's come out is artillery, Confederate artillery, cavalry, Union cavalry, Confederate cavalry, and then Jackson here again. That's been the next series of chits that have come out. Now, what has happened with that? Well, with the cavalry and artillery, not too much. I'm going to tilt you back down here and zoom you out. And we can see here our cavalry is roughly about where they were. Ashby's artillery here is holding the Confederate right flank, along with the 7th Virginia A Battalion in the woods. Ashby himself's over here, and then the 2 other cavalry units are over here as well. Positioning over here for this flank to potentially support some sort of flanking movement over here, which may become more of a reality given what has gone on over here with Jackson's infantry movements over here as well. There was a little bit of artillery fire back and forth between the Danville batteries and Hamden batteries with First Westford. Oh, excuse me, I've got that backwards. Danville actually was firing at the infantry to support Garnett here, and the Augusta and Allegheny batteries were engaging with the First West Virginia B battery up here. Back and forth, no effect, as you can see. So that was a bit of repositioning, a little shooting, a little action over there, but not very much in there. The next thing that came up is Jackson, and that's where I stopped it here so that I could give you more of the action of what's going on. So Jackson started off with Garnett, slowly moving up. He, as you can see, he dispersed the skirmishers that were up there, or the skirmishers retreated once the 2nd Virginia here fired on them and then moved up. No casualties, but they retreated back and they were reincorporated back in with the 8th Ohio, their main regiment or their parent regiment. This allowed Garnett to move up more units, namely the 4th Virginia, and they moved up here and exchanged fire with the 8th Ohio. But 8th Ohio got the best of them and disrupted them. Automatic disruption over here with no effect on the 8th Ohio. So it's a little bit out of range, but the 8th Ohio's volley, given their numbers, had more of a telling effect. A little bit more firing from the 2nd Virginia B over here at them, but no effect there as well. So that allowed Garnett to establish their positions just in front of Mahaney's farm and just south of the Opaikan Church over there. Union has a good line over here that's in command and can stay that way. The other thing, and the more important thing here, is you notice that Fulkerson has moved up to potentially challenge the 1st West Virginia cavalry over here, holding this road, this trail going from Kernstown over to the middle road over in there. He's going to try to come around. Now, the artillery is going to keep an eye on this, and they'll probably be able to get a shot at these guys coming across here, being up on the hill and them being a larger unit. But if they can push them back and establish some sort of a line to potentially threaten the left, that might get some movement, more movement out of the Union troops here as well. Burks is now kind of the reserve brigade. He's not in reserve, but he is more there for covering or attacking in a breakthrough approach there. So there's the situation. Still kind of feeling each other out with this 1 p.m. turn. So we'll get on to some more activations, and I'll give you highlights in a little bit. Okay, wrapping up the 1 p.m. turn. Last set of highlights here. Just want to show you the order of the chip pulls on here. So we had a couple of Jackson chip pulls right here, which got him to maneuver a little bit, and we'll see that. And then followed by some cavalry over here, and then the rest of the U.S. side, which was all artillery. There's a little bit of artillery duel that I'll also show you here as well, and a little bit of reactionary movement with the cavalry after Jackson's maneuvers. So let's take a look. So tipping you down here, and I also want to zoom you back out so you can see everything. And we'll take a look at where we're at. So where we're at still is on the Valley Pike. Now Jackson had come up this way. We've got our artillery arrayed here, and we've got Ashby's artillery over here. Union lines have come across here, as we saw before in some of the other snippets. The Union has moved up and trying to hold the line over here. Sullivan is coming and taking control of the line over here. Kimball's moving up here as well, just to the top of the camera here. But Jackson's moves are this. The artillery is over here on the right flank of Jackson's troops. And they're engaging the units over here, trying to soften them up a little bit because we've got some good, not good, but I should say high strength point units over here. We've got some 11s, 9s, 7s, etc. Trying to weaken them a little bit. And they have a little bit here. They've gotten the 14th New York disrupted. There was some disruption of the Confederates over here by artillery from, off the map over here as well, but a little exchange of fire with the artillery on there. Garnett has held his position here. Even though he's in attack, he hasn't moved up yet because these units are still in good order. Now, this one makes it interesting. Now that he's disrupted, he may start coming into attack. But the bigger thing is over here on the extreme, I don't want to say extreme, but on the left of Jackson's line, we have Fulkerson moved up here and forced the cavalry, the 1st West Virginia Cavalry, to retreat, and the 1st Maryland Cavalry to retreat back up here as well. So they've established a line over here coming through this little open area in the Barton Woods between the woods by the church and the main woods back over here. So this gets them around here and potentially can bring them around into the flank. But this is the artillery up here I was talking about before. These are some pretty strong guns up here from both the 1st West Virginia, the Ohio, and 4th U.S. are holding Pritchard's Hill. So these are 3 batteries. Yeah, 3 batteries here that are holding this hill with Parrots, 3-inch rifles, some howitzers, and some Parrots. So a lot of firepower up there that can shoot down on these troops if they try to go up against them or even try to flank them across. So this is where it's going to get interesting because I think Garnett in the next turn is potentially going to attack. As I said, he hasn't done anything else here, but if they can weaken this line, they'll potentially attack. Because one of the things they want to do is try to break some of these brigades. If we can get some BCEs, that'll be points for the Confederates. The Union is kind of holding out, not activating, so they're accumulating victory points pretty quickly by doing that. So that's kind of the strategy of this. We've got Burke's back here, who's now kind of the reserve units, and kind of fill in if Garnett's successful or if Fulkerson's successful, they can fill in over here. We've got Ashby also moving up over here. Now let's see, where'd Ashby go? Oh yeah, Ashby is over here with Jackson now. And he is over here because he's got his cavalry here to potentially exploit, or at least at a minimum, keep the Union cavalry at bay just by moving up and around to allow Fulkerson some freedom of movement over on that left side. The real trick is going to be that artillery, as I mentioned before. From the Union perspective, now that things are unfolding a little bit, they've moved a little bit. As I said, they're reinforcing this line. Sullivan is coming up to take command here. Kimball's coming up over here because he's the overall commander, division commander of the battle. So he wants to be a little bit closer to the battle. But now that we've got Fulkerson over here, he may have to pivot and bring units over to extend this line to cover his guns over there on his right and cover that hill. Even though there is a slight reserve over there, that's the 84th Pennsylvania, but they're only 5 strengths and they're armed with European rifles, so they're not real great, but hopefully in a pinch they can do well. Meanwhile, they may start swinging back some of these other units, but they're out of command, like the 8th Ohio over here and the 67th Ohio. Plus, we've got Ashby's guns and some cavalry over here too, but we may replace them with this cavalry up here and have Sullivan take over and semi-refuse the flank over here with his units to try to potentially hold off over there. So that's where we stand. This is the end of the 1 p.m. turn. We've moved on to 2 p.m. And the Union, from a victory point perspective, the Union has it. It's 3 points to nothing at the moment. But that can change rapidly with a BCE or the Union having to be forced to move quickly and give up some victory points to the Confederates. So with that, we'll say thanks for watching, and please like us, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Remember to watch the playlist and see the rest of these turns coming up. Next one, like I said, is going to be 1400, 2 p.m., and we'll go on from there. Thanks for watching.